Hi, everybody. You might know me from Twitch TV as Lever90. I am a variety streamer. I'm from Canada. I focus on JRPGs, platformers, and fighting games is what we're going to be talking about tonight because EVO is happening. And with me for this video is my friend on Twitch TV, JonMcBon.
Hi everybody. Leafer, thank you for having me on this, and let's just say EVO has been an interesting time, at least at least at this point of recording. Because for now there's still a couple more things that are gonna be happening, but there was just some stuff that caught our attention that we just wanted to discuss because I'm a big
We're
SNK
SNK.
fan.
We're SNK nerds, and I'm an SNK nerd thanks to you.
Yes. Well, I mean that one was a surprise for me because I mean, like you said, you didn't know much about SNK before, did you?
No, and I didn't know much about 2D fighters beforehand either because my fighting game background is from, well, 3D fighters.
Most notably, what, Dead or Alive, right?
Yes, Dead or Alive and then Soul Calibur.
I'm surprised you haven't played any, like, say, Tekken.
You know what? I just was never exposed to Tekken when I was younger, and my one friend who got me into fighting games wasn't really a big fan of it, so I wouldn't have had anyone to play with. He was more focused on Dead or Alive and Soul Calibur, so his preferences kind of shaped me as a fighter.
Which is fair. Yeah, because I know for mine, like, I do like my 3D, but I like my 2D more, but it's just more like, I just kind of discovered it on a whim, and it's just more like, hey, let's just have some fun with this. And then it kind of grew from there. But
Tell us how you discovered 2D fighters and SNK specifically.
Well, for 2D fighters, here's the funny one. It was when I was a kid with my friends, and he had a Super Nintendo, and he rented Mortal Kombat 3.
I'm guessing you guys were a little bit too young to really be playing MK at the time.
I mean, wouldn't anyone be too young to be playing MK, at least in the 90s?
You know what? Fair point.
Yeah, no, but we
It
played
was
that.
pretty shocking
It
for
was,
the
but it was
time.
fun. It was a fun game. Didn't pull off any fatalities or knew how to pull off special moves. So again, it was just more like mashing buttons and just learning from that. But then that led to
Isn't that
Street Fighter
fighting
2.
games in the beginning anyways?
But sometimes that's all it needs to be. But then again, I guess you could
hmm
say you could just play a brawler at that point. Just play
hmm
like a Streets of Rage or something. But for SNK, to answer your part on that, it wasn't a fighting game that I got discovered me to SNK. It was actually their shooter, Metal Slug. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of that. I haven't played it. I do
Mhm.
want to try it out eventually. How did you get into Metal Slug?
Original Xbox. Because I was playing original Xbox games and I saw Metal Slug 3 and I'm like, hey, this artwork looks cool. Let's just try it.
Simpler times. I wish we could kind of go back to that and not be jaded gamers anymore.
No, I mean, we can still not be jaded, but it's just kind of hard to be not jaded. But
Exactly.
playing Metal Slug 3 and then led into King of Fighters 2002 and just tried that. I'm like, this artwork looks kind of interesting. I do like the sprite work. But I think I've told you this story before, but not for everyone here. But KOF Special 02, that game specifically for me, original 02, not Ultimate Match, because we'll get to that probably at some point. But original 02, because that's the game that got me back into 2D fighting games.
You know what? 2002 Unlimited Match is my favorite King of Fighters game, and I have you to thank for that.
It's funny how things work full circle that way. You think?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because like
And if you hadn't gifted me King of Fighters 14, I would not have tried out King of Fighters 15, which is actually probably my game of the year so far.
right now, that game is one of my top contenders for sure. And I would say, at least with the support that SNK has been putting out for it, they're going all in.
This actually segues into one of the announcements that was made at EVO today.
Yeah, because let's start with that because we know they had an SNK developer panel on Friday, and they gave some brief overviews of the new DLC team that's coming out, the Awakened Orochi team.
Which I know you're excited for.
hmm Because that has my favorite iteration of Chris. I like that version of Chris and Shermie more than the standard ones
Why are those your favorite iterations?
because, well, Chris uses flames and Shermie uses lightning. Basically, I think of the Awakened Orochi
Any
team
and
as
any
Team
and
Japan.
hmm
Yeah,
I was gonna say they're like Benimaru and Kyo.
Kyo. Yeah, essentially. And then Yashiro is Goro, is Daimon.
hmm
Because that's basically
which
what they
is
are, the antithesis of
mm,
them.
which is a pretty cool uh, idea to riff on the villains mirroring the
The heroes,
heroes.
at least during that saga. But
Hmm.
the funny thing is that like yeah, no, they are completely different play styles. You cannot rely on the same tactics as their standard variations. So that makes them more, I think, unique and interesting.
I
But they
know, however, that you're also very excited for two of the characters that got announced today for season two.
season two, yeah, because season two is not coming out till 2023. But there are two highly requested ones I like, and I know one of them you don't like whenever I play them.
Yes, I'm gonna have nightmares about Shingo in the future, I think.
With Shingo, but I want to see how Shingo's going to play with these new systems because I don't think we've seen Shingo in 3D.
That would be correct, to my knowledge,
Yeah, I
that we have not seen Shingo in 3D. Maybe they'll butcher him like they did to Billy.
oh god, they better not. I mean, unless he gets like super buffed to hell like the Garou team.
I love the Garou team, and because of that, I've actually found one of my mains.
Janet.
Yep,
Did you watch any of the EVO finals?
I did not.
Okay.
I was kind of doing other things at the time.
Okay. Most of the EVO finals, because like the Garou team is considered like top tier in the game now, along with Kula, Cronin, Shizuru as well. They're considered top
Hmm.
tier. And the final teams, at least for the grand finals match, it was a mirror match. It was basically Kula, Cronin, and Janet. That's it.
How are you feeling about the current King of Fighters meta? Would you say that it's better than the meta we had a couple months ago?
Well, I mean, we're just not going to see constant VRTs, Vanessa, Ralph, and Terry, because that's what ruled the scene when it launched. But I know we're going to see a lot of rulings with these new top tier characters. At least there's more options this time for top
And a
tiers.
and a diverse meta is always a good thing, no matter
Hmm.
what kind of game you're in.
But I'm happy to see at least like one character that I liked playing got buffed, and she got buffed to top tier, and it's Chizuru.
Shizuru is definitely a character I like. She's got a very elegant style, and I like that.
Mm-hmm. And like I've told you before, at least off stream with it, this is the first time I've actually liked playing Chizuru.
How come you didn't like playing Shizuru beforehand?
I don't know, it didn't click. Something didn't
It
click with Chizuru.
it hasn't clicked with me for 98 so
Mm-hmm.
far.
But it's a difference in playstyle. Just like, again, on side tangent here, you tried out Yuri in 98. Compared to 15, there are differences.
You can't even call them the same character anymore. They might have some of the same inputs, but that's about it.
Same inputs, some of the same moves and everything, but it's just the way they feel and the way they play is a different
Hmm.
style completely. That's the thing I get with Shizuru. It's just like I'm sure her old styles are viable. I just like how she feels in 15.
I definitely enjoyed how she's played in 15.
But yeah, like with the meta right now, it looks like it's gonna be fine. But I do want to see some changes because I do think like at least all the top tiers are good, but I feel like some characters still need buffs. Billy being one of them.
What other changes would you like to see to 15? Because you said that some changes need to come.
Well, I mean, I do think, at least as much as I like all of the top tier stuff, I do think some characters do need nerfs. Like all the
Who
top
would you?
tiers, maybe as much as I love her, I want to see B Jenna get a bit of a nerf. Same thing with Kula, same thing with Rock.
You know what? I can agree with the Kula nerf. I don't need a certain somebody bullying us anymore.
Well, I mean, well, because here's the thing: like Kula and at least Chizuru, for example, they weren't considered top tier. They were considered like mid tier, maybe low tier.
Hmm.
But now with this balance patch update, the balance patch update that they put out after Southtown, they're at the top of the list.
I'm really interested though to see where season two takes us because we know we're getting Shingo and we know we're getting a fan favorite in Kim Cap1.
One of my OGs. He's him along with Yuri and K Dash were the first characters I learned when playing KOF.
And you know what? From the little bit I've played of Kim, I really like his playstyle.
Kim is a simple pick up and play character. That's one of the things I liked with him.
Not
And
only is he pick up and play, but he's also got a fun set of inputs to use.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels so
Well designed.
satisfying.
Okay.
Satisfying, I would say.
The one thing I'm curious about also too, like when we saw the team two, at least those two characters, it was just artwork. It wasn't models. So I'm wondering if those are their outfits.
I think that's a possibility.
There's just one thing I hope for Kim. They have to give him his glorious flowing pants.
I was going to make a reference to that meme, but you beat me to it.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be there. If they just give him like track pants, be like, nope, this isn't Kim. Even if Kim is going to be like one of the top characters or one of the best characters to play, he needs that.
If they put Kim in track pants, they might as well make his hair gray and call him Grandpa Kim.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Kim is old. He does have kids.
That's funny how in King of Fighters, if you have kids, you're automatically old.
Yeah, but here's the thing also with KOF. People don't age.
Nope.
Considering how long the tournament's been going on.
It's like they have a new tournament every week.
Essentially, that's what it feels like. Oh, every day, oh, hey, here's a new KOF tournament.
You would think with all the fighting that there'd be some severe injuries that they'd have to rehab from.
Oh, they do. They probably just take a day.
Anime logic,
Yeah.
right?
Pretty much. But the other thing we got to talk about with teams, because we already talked about Awaken Orochi, but we didn't talk about the final team that's coming out this autumn.
Team Samurai.
Team Samurai, yeah. So that leak, the leaks we saw were true. So it is
They were.
Haomaru, Nakoruru, and Darly Dagger.
How do you feel about that team? Because you're the Sam Show guy. I've only dabbled a little bit in the Neo Geo collection.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad they put those three in. Like, Nakoruru makes sense because she was in 14. And apparently, if you went up against her, she could destroy anybody.
You never were on the receiving end of that, I'm assuming.
I have been once or twice with it, but I didn't get to play a lot of KOF 14 online, so... But I know the potential of Nakoruru. But seeing Haomaru in there, that was nice, but I also see now why they decided to go with Haomaru on the team for it.
Why's that?
Because now, if you saw the trailer, they basically now have every main hero representative from most of their franchises. You have Terry from Fatal Fury, you have Kyo from KOF 94, you have Ryo from Art of Fighting, and now you got Haomaru from Samurai Showdown.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's surprising that it took them so long to actually do it.
Yeah, but I feel like it took them a while to do it. Took them a while to do it, yeah, but I feel like they had the reasoning for it.
Oh yeah, they definitely had their reasoning. It's just funny that back in the day they were like, oh, after 2 games we're not sure if Samurai Showdown is going to be all that popular.
But it is.
Whereas,
it has its own little legacy.
Mm-hmm. Whereas they were like Art of Fighting, Fatal Fury. Yeah, we were only a couple games in. Let's go for it.
But to be fair, those also take place in the same area. They are kind of part of Southtown, if I remember correctly.
You are correct on that.
Mm-hmm. And then KOF just kind of spun off into its own thing, because KOF was basically the spin-off, but then KOF became the main thing. But then, yeah, but going back to that, so Haomaru makes sense. You now have the 4 characters from some of SNK's main fighting franchises now in KOF 15, and then you have Darly.
And I know you like Darly as a character quite a bit.
Mostly for her design, and she's a pirate.
Hey, we both have pirates that we like.
Yeah, but Darly, the thing with Darly is that she is new. She was introduced in the last Samurai Showdown game, the most recent one, and she quickly became a fan favorite because of her playstyle and her design.
Which we can quickly mention, it's going to finally get rollback netcode.
Yes. And
which I bet you're really excited for because, you know what, after playing rollback, I find it very difficult to go to my 3D fighters anymore because the delay based is just so painful to play.
It is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Like, even the better examples, like Soul Calibur 6, Dead or Alive 6, it's like, okay, this feels very laggy. I'm not having that much fun.
Which makes me hope for their next installments, they have to make rollback standard, and they also have to make crossplay standard. Which...
I agree.
They announced that also. So KOF 15 is getting full crossplay now for next year. because the Samurai Showdown stuff is coming next year as well. But I'm glad to see at least that SNK is putting it in, because I know that was a big request from players for Sam's show.
And you know what? They're one of the first companies to actually embrace crossplay in their fighting games, and I commend them for that.
Yeah. Arc is doing it too with Guilty Gear Strive, so that's going to be a plus for them. So we at least have two companies right now on board with it.
Which I think the big boys really need to pay attention now.
Well, Capcom's doing it, so we already know they're on board with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that will help with Street Fighter 6 easily.
Mm-hmm. I was more thinking not just Capcom, but also Bandai in general. Yeah. Bandai and Team Ninja.
Yeah, so, well, who knows? DOA 7, we'll have to see, like, if a DOA 7 will exist.
I think a DOA 7 will exist at some point. I think that they're just putting it on the back burner for now because the developers are just so busy with their other projects that they can't focus on it right now.
Yeah, so who knows? It'll probably come in later time, though. But Sega's also one that needs to jump on that bandwagon, too, hopefully with the next VF.
I will say this, though. I actually don't hate the Virtua Fighter's way of doing
online.
Yeah.
It's good, but it's not the best.
No, and once the server, if they ever lose those access to those servers, they're kind of screwed.
Yeah, because right now it just seems like Arc and SNK right now are taking point when it comes to this stuff, at least for big companies.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll have to see. But Bandai Namco is the last one, but they did announce today that Fighters is getting rollback netcode.
Which is a good thing.
But there's a catch.
What's the catch?
It is current gen only, so only PS5, series consoles, and PC.
You know what? That's fine. PS4 is being phased out. Xbox One is being phased out.
But they should still put it on there, though.
Mm-hmm.
They should still put it on there. They're not going to.
I agree, but it's not the biggest deal that they're not doing it, because going forward, they're probably just going to be supporting the PS5 and series version of consoles anyways for that game, and slowly letting last-gen hardware die off.
Slowly, because it's time to support at least current gen now. There's just one thing I hope they don't do that they did with Tekken. You remember with Tekken they put out frame data?
I don't, because I wasn't really part of the FGC at that point in time.
Okay, so for Tekken, they put out frame data. You had to buy it.
That's stupid.
I'm hoping, but I think it's unlikely, they may say you have to pay for rollback netcode.
If that's the case, fuck them.
I hope they don't do it.
I hope they don't either. But the thing is, that's kind of sad, considering Dead or Alive has had, to my knowledge, the frame data baked in at least since 5, which is when I actually got into fighting games for the first time.
But I don't think they charged too much. It was only a couple of bucks, or you buy the frame data with the season pass. But still, I don't think you should charge for that. Because they also said you can upgrade your PS4 and Xbox One version, but they haven't given details on how that works. But going off of that, at least, it's good to see that like SNK is going to incorporate crossplay into KOF 15, because I think that game, it honestly should have launched with it, but it's good that they're putting it in there. And just like they're acknowledging the Sam Show community by saying, hey, yeah, you want rollback, you're getting it. We're implementing it. We're implementing what we use for KOF 15 and working with Code Mystics. So
and I really like how Code Mystics implements their rollback netcode, because other than that one night where I don't know whose internet was being funny, but one of our internets was, we were playing 2002 Unlimited Match, and we experienced what a bad example of rollback was.
But, other than like that instance, and I know playing Last Blade 2 was a little bit rough, but everything else we have at least tried has been good. So,
since we're on the topic of rollback, do you think they can incorporate it to a proper 3D fighter?
A fully 3D fighting game?
Yeah.
I feel like it can be done.
Just going to be very difficult, right?
Well, it's just a matter of like, can you make it work within those confines, and also just as long as it's not too taxing on hardware and internet. because we're seeing like two and a half D fighters incorporated now. Like you have Guilty Gear Strive, you have KOF 15, and now you have Samurai Showdown, and of course Street Fighter 6. If Bandai Namco were to put it into, say, for example, Tekken 8, which I believe that got teased today too, if they put it into Tekken 8, I think that will help Tekken.
It definitely will.
But
And
even
I
if
might even
they
get
do it
into
for
Tekken
DOA,
at that point.
but they
Sorry,
need to
what
do
was
it for
that?
DOA 7. I think it has to happen for DOA 7
I agree.
for sure.
Uh, so this will be the last part about teams and DLC for KOF.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Going forward, who are some characters you'd like to see brought back, and maybe some possible team combinations?
Alice. I
Is
want
Al
Alice is one of the ones I want back. Same with Kasumi.
Mhm.
Same with Kasumi. Those are probably my two, but I also would want to see Zarina. But we need to know how the structure is going to be for the DLC this time, because right now it just looks like individuals right now.
Yep. Which would be a little bit disappointing.
I would be okay with that. I mean, because that's how they did it for KOF 14 with their DLC. They didn't do teams; they just did individual characters. But I
Yep.
think they should do team structures because it would make it a little more interesting. But it's just a matter of do they have the time to do it?
Mhm. It would be more interesting, and it's a better value proposition to the buyer
Mm-hmm.
because you get 3 characters instead of, just 1.
Pretty much. But I think they're gonna do like if they do individual characters for the whole year, I would imagine at least minimum 4, maximum 8.
I agree with that.
Minimum 4,
Uh,
maximum 8 as a guess. But who do you want to see?
Melee.
Melee?
Yep. You already said Alice, so I'm not going to repeat her.
But you can still say Alice. Like that can still be your request, right?
That is one of my requests. Alice, Melee, and we've talked about it off stream, but I can't remember the other character that I said I wanted. I knew I wanted Shingo, but that was just because Shingo's a fun character, and yeah, I'll be traumatized by you beating my butt with him, but
But no, there are better players with Shingo. That's why I'm curious to see like how he fits in with the systems. But we'll have to see what they do. We'll have to see what they do with it.
2 of my requests were already covered today with
Yeah.
Shingo and Kim, so
Mm-hmm.
that kind of limits it, and B Jenny is already in there.
Yeah, because I wanted Team Garou, but before we wrap this up, we should at least point out that other thing that SNK also said has been greenlit.
Which is the thing I'm most excited for, and we'll probably go off for quite a while on this topic, I think.
Yeah, because this one would take a bit, but we'll just touch on a little bit, I guess, maybe for now. But yeah,
No, we can go for
we'll see
a bit on
okay,
it.
let's go with it. But yeah, no. A new
Garou
Fatal Fury
2.
and Garou. It's been 23 years since Garou Mark of the Wolves.
It's about damn time.
So I'm glad to see it, and it looks like from at least the key art that they showed for it, that Rock's gonna be the main protagonist by the looks of it. Kine's return, Kine or Kane. I don't. Sorry if I pronounce his name wrong, but he's gonna be back, and Billy's there too.
I didn't see the Billy part, but that's interesting.
That was the first character they showed actually in that artwork. He's in the far back on the left, I believe.
You know what? I was just too focused on the center image to
On the
take
center
in the
image for
rest.
it.
Yeah. Because Rock takes up so much of the actual space. So
But
it's
yeah.
like, my attention was drawn there. He stands out because of his red jacket.
Mm-hmm.
I was couldn't see the forest for the trees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I saw those characters, so I'm assuming that is Kine in there. So if that's the case, then he lived after what happened in Garou. But I hope the biggest thing I guess for that would just be roster. Like I would like to see everybody from Mark of the Wolves return.
Same here. Also, thank you. You just tipped my brain off to who I want as DLC character in King of Fighters 15 that I forgot about.
But
Kushnud Butt.
yeah, I could
Mostly
see him.
because of the memes. Mostly because of the memes, but he's a fun character to play.
He's basically like Ryo Sakazaki.
But he doesn't feel as stiff to me.
What I'll say then is this: if you don't get Butt in KOF, you'll probably get him in Garou too.
Do you think that they'll go with the Kushnud Butt name, or do you think they'll go with the Marco Rodriguez name and finally decide which one is the correct one?
I think they may. It depends on which canon they're gonna go with. I would like the option for both, but I feel like they might go with. I think Kushnud because that's what was in the Japanese one.
Personally, I like the name because the memes.
Just for memes. That's all it's for. Meme purposes, nothing else.
Well, what can I say? I have the humor of a 10-year-old sometimes mixed with a horny old man.
Well, no, listen, if you want to go bad with that, then we can, just like in Garou, if all those characters from Garou return in Garou 2, then we can have a butt versus dong.
I actually would love to see that happen in King of Fighters 15, though I don't think we'll see Kim's kids.
I don't think we'll see Kim's kids in KOF 15, but I can safely say you'll see them in Garou 2. Because I want to say at least all the base roster from Garou will make it into Garou 2, with the exception, I think, of one of the bosses. But I also want to see some of the characters that were cut from Garou 2, the original version of it, before it got scrapped. I want to see them return into Garou 2, but I also want to see other characters return from Fatal Fury.
Since you're the SNK historian here, which characters were cut from the proposed Garou Mark of the Wolves 2?
There were a couple of them. I know one of the characters was one of Joe's students.
That could be interesting.
Yep, one of Joe's students was there. But I don't remember the names off the top of my head for that stuff. But I do want to see at least those designs and stuff incorporate into the that
Mark
game.
II.
Into Mark II. But I also, like I said, want to see characters from Fatal Fury return. Like, I'd want to see Kim. I would want to see Blueberry. I want to see Mai. I would want to see Joe, and I want to see Andy.
You literally confirmed what I was just about to say. I actually would really love to see Blue Mary in her older form and like that. I'd like to see that because I really like the outfit that they chose.
But I also want to see them incorporate maybe, like, on top of if they can bring back those old designs, that would be awesome. If they can't do it, then bring in new characters. Make brand new characters, because I feel like there needs to be new designs as well. But if you just want to talk, like, classics and stuff, I wonder if they would incorporate real bout characters. So, like, bring in Rick. I would love to see Rick.
I think that's a possibility. By the way, since we're on the topic of the Garou Mark II roster, what do you think the ideal roster size is for that one? Because Garou had, 12 characters in its
if
base
you include
form?
the bosses, yeah. Otherwise, it's 10.
So, by today's
20.
standards, very, very
20.
tiny.
Yeah, it needs to be... It doesn't need to be huge like a KOF game.
No, it doesn't need to be huge like a KOF game.
I would want to say minimum 20.
20, I feel like, is a very reasonable amount because there's enough diversity and because the game doesn't focus on complex inputs. That's actually rather desirable.
Well, that's the other thing, too. It's just, like, in terms of systems and stuff, I would want to... What would you want to see, like, from Garou? Would you want a carbon copy of Garou 1 just in 3D, or would you want to see them put in something different?
I'd like to see the top system return, but maybe expanded on a little bit. Maybe
bring back Just Defend.
Yes, Just Defend is actually one of my favorite mechanics because it gives me a visual input as to what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. I'd like to see maybe being able to activate like be more active with the top system when you actually get into that zone. So like, you know how you can expend meter for a roll in King of Fighters, like the
guard cancels or the guard evades or stuff like that.
Yeah. I'd like to see a little bit of that included. Like maybe when you hit that zone, you can activate those in Garou Mark II.
Something like that. I would want to see something incorporated like Shatter Strike.
That would be a lot of fun.
Something like Shatter Strike. In terms of, I would say maybe the super meter, keep it the same as it was in Garou. Don't do what the KOF thing is, which is just build meter and stock, Whereas, like in Garou, you either have S power or P power, but if you don't use it, then it just drains.
Hmm. I like that idea.
Yeah, keep that kind of
Honest,
system with it.
honestly, Garou is maybe the perfect 2D fighter in my opinion. I would like to see. I mean, I like King of Fighters for what it does. I love the team aspect of it, but I love how Garou plays.
Hmm. I think what was one comparison I heard with it, and I believe it. Garou is SNK's third strike.
I have not played Third Strike, so I can't comment on that particular front.
Hmm. But I remember that like floating around, and I would believe that because I think Garou is almost perfect as a game, as a fighting game.
Hmm.
But I do want to see. But on top of like seeing like the systems from Garou and everything is cool, but I would want to see some newer stuff with it. Like I
What are
know
some newer
besides like something similar to Shatter Strike.
Hmm.
Besides something similar to Shatter Strike, this one could be decisive though. But what are your thoughts on comeback mechanics?
Personally, I love them because they're a major part of 3D fighters.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little bit biased here. And I think even though it can be used as a crutch by newer players, seeing high level play with comeback mechanics, that actually is beautiful to behold because it's a chess game at that point.
Yeah, because like it depends on how it's implemented with the games. Like, yeah, I would want to see something like that in a 2D fight in like say Garou, but don't make it like freely available. Like one interesting system would be is like you have the comeback mechanic, but you only get one shot at using it.
So like DOA 6's blowback.
Hmm. But the thing with blowback is, or at least that's when you have that meter full, when you use it, you could use it anytime the 4 meters are full, right?
You could use it to get out of a hold,
Mm-hmm.
but that's about it. That's the only other way you could use it. So if you were being like really pressured by a grappling character, you could use 1 bar of meter and then get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to have 1 bar.
In order to use it, and you needed what, 2 or 4 in DOA.
2 to use the blowback.
Mm-hmm. So
But it takes forever to fill up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
So
like
really you only got 1 per match anyways.
mm-hmm. Something like that would be neat, I would say. But like
Mm-hmm.
have it tied to a different meter. Like if you want to make it risky, you could have it as you could tie it into your same super meter for one. Or the other option is you make it its own separate meter, but it only fills when you get hit. Then it's similar to like filling up your ultra meter in Street Fighter 4, for example.
I definitely like those ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So let's briefly talk art style. How would you want Garou 2 to handle it? Would you want them to do 2D pixel art, or would you like them to go the 3D route?
I think it's 3D, and I have a theory for that too because I remember SNK doing an interview with Unreal, like the Unreal Engine devs,
Mm-hmm.
and they said SNK said during their interview that we like using Unreal Engine and we're using it for something else too. Let me just see if I can find that quote
All
for
right,
you.
I will
But
kind of
it's
waffle on. Oh, go
but
ahead.
it's more like I think it's going to use Unreal Engine. I think it's confirmed. Like they've already had success with it with Samurai Showdown, and they improved upon it with KOF 15.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is. Here's the quote. So what Oda said was, "We're currently testing a new game in the works that will be using Unreal Engine. So I can say there's a strong possibility in the future." So I have a
Okay.
feeling Garou 2 is going to be the same thing as like KOF 15 and Samurai Showdown 2.5D. I just don't think it's going to use either of their art styles.
What art style do you think they'll go with then?
What could work though with Garou though?
Because it had a very warm color palette with the pixel art,
Mm-hmm. It had very warm, and the colors did pop. You get something like that with KOF 15.
but it's brighter and it's more pastel.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be the thing with it, because with KOF it's brighter and like a little more colorful, whereas I think if you go with maybe a pastel look or something with the art
Hmm.
for Fatal Fury Garou, I think that would work because Samurai Showdown looked like a water painting,
It did,
looked like Japanese
which
art, and that suited its style.
it really did.
Yeah, so I think they would maybe go for maybe kind of a pastel look or something for it.
Hmm.
But I think the thing with at least SNK stuff for their games, they're not they're not always the most technically advanced. They are the most artistically endearing, and that's something I
Which
would hope for at least for this.
which makes them very similar to Nihon Falcom in that sense. Not powerhouses technically, but artistically powerhouse.
Hmm. So I'd be curious to see what they do with it, but I imagine like for this, we're not going to see anything on it for another 2, 3 years.
I agree with that. I wish that we could get it sooner, but it's going to be nice to see whenever it comes.
Yeah, when they first show it off, yeah, I mean you know where I'm gonna be there for it.
As will I.
I'm gonna be there for it, and I think we're both gonna be playing that thing no matter what.
Definitely, and I have you to thank for that.
Well, here's to more SNK games though, because it's not just gonna end here. We'll still be doing some more KOF though in the future.
Definitely. So I think that we're kind of at a good point to wrap it up.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you want to say, John? And is there anywhere where people can find you?
Well, with that, well, first, thanks for having me here. I appreciate it. It's always fun to talk about SNK stuff and also just like kind of what's going on with things. We'll obviously be talking more about this stuff in the future, so whether it would be like here with Lever, or you can catch me on my channel. I do have a YouTube channel, which is just youtube.com/McBonJohn, and then I also have a Twitch as well, twitch.tv/JonMcBon. You can check me out there. You know, it's a chill place to relax. Lever likes to hang out there. I know from time to
I'm
time.
actually a mod in his channel, and he's a mod in mine.
Exactly. So feel free to come by and hang out and chat. It's always a pleasure. But again, just
I
thanks
will
for having
also,
me here.
yeah, no problem. I will also link to your YouTube and Twitch down below. Also, if you have any social media to plug beyond that, please feel free. I can link that as well.
Awesome. But with that, I think Lever, take us home.
Yep. All right, guys. So that is kind of our reaction coverage, whatever you want to call this, to EVO 2022. Well, more specifically, the SNK stuff, because we didn't really touch upon the other things. They're great things, but we're SNK nerds. That's what we wanted to focus on. You can find me on twitch.tv/Lever90. On Twitter, you can find me at twitter.com/Lever90TTV. And that's also my username on Instagram, so you can catch me there. And I hope to see you guys at a later point.